Good evening and welcome to the March 25th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I'll entertain an approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Director Perez, will you please read the purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. And we're going to start this mild spring evening off with a little bit of a celebration.
Yes, we have, as you know, most of you all know, an amazing crew that Jerry has remove our snow. And so being my first year in Iowa, I got to watch this process that was pretty amazing. And I wanted to say, these people get up at 3 a.m. or don't go to bed, I don't know. But 3 a.m. they are up and at it. And I mean, for the Washington girl who didn't see much snow, it was absolutely amazing what they do. And so I asked Jerry if he would bring them and let us say thank you to them. And Eric put together some pictures, and I just so much appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and thank you. I think this is a good thing to celebrate. Our goal is to get schools open on time every day, regardless of what happens. We don't want to be the excuse for not having schools, but there's quite a bit that goes into it. We watch the weather forecast for a week in advance, kind of watching how the planned event changes, because it doesn't always do what they say 5 days out. So we also try to schedule and plan when we're going to spread salt. So part of the snow is being able to deal with salt. We try to spread salt in order to create a barrier between the pavement and the upcoming snow event. Timing is critical too. Not timing for when we react, but when it starts snowing. Because if it starts snowing at 8 in the morning, there's no sense in getting out and start plowing because it's going to snow, and anything we push out of the way is going to end up getting covered up or reaccumulated. So our goal is to time that right at the end, or as close as we can to the end of the event, and still be able to get things worked in so we can have schools open on time. But we have a crew, a total of 15 men and women that do the snow crew, or the snow removal. We have various sizes and types of equipment. We have them sized and suitable for the size of parking lots. Like the high school is the biggest parking lot, the biggest area, so we use a dump truck on that. Middle school second, so our second largest and third largest trucks are out there. We also clear the sidewalks and we clear the playgrounds. So fire me up, Eric, and we'll, instead of asking the crew to come up, Eric was nice enough to come over and take pictures of us. So I thought, rather than ask the crew to come in late at night, Heather Grove is our operations dispatcher. Alan Schoaf was the next guy in there. This is Ryan Dodd. He drives a plow truck, and typically he'll do 2 schools. We have Brody and Brent, both drive tractors. Charlie's on the big dump truck. Steve Mingus is on a plow truck. He hits Sawyer. And I get to drive a Bobcat, and so I work with the crew too. We have Logan, and this is Charlie and Kate, both the Larson family. Bill Bagnall does a pickup truck, and Brent does a tractor. Those are the Bobcat crew. So we also have a couple of the high school head custodian, the middle school head custodian get out, and they do the sidewalks that they're building, and then if they get done on time, then they'll go to the next elementary building. Josh is a forklift driver. Bill Abbott is the head high school custodian. That was pretty quick.
You did a good test.
So anyway, these guys are really good. We had 3 Sundays in a row that we came in and we worked. And in order to get the entire district all cleaned up, and then parking lots, playgrounds, sidewalks, and then get a layer of salt down, it takes anywhere from about 6 to 8 hours when we have a full crew. So we'll try and make our decision by 8 o'clock at night. So we'll send out a group text at 8 o'clock at night. That way we don't have to call them 2 in the morning or something like that, give them a chance to maybe get a couple hours of sleep. So we try and be courteous to our workers in order to be able to let them know ahead of time. And then we decide when we're going to come in the morning, and guys are there early. They start moving clearing the sidewalks out in front of the maintenance building, or start clearing out for the buses. And we have to take that into account too, as far as getting our lot cleared out so that we can get the buses out too. So these guys are really dedicated. They do a really good job. They don't complain. I mean, some of these guys drag themselves in. They're sicker than a dog, and they get their main lot done, and then we got to go home.
Yeah.
So we send them in, but it's really a good group to work with, and I'm really proud of them, and they're hardworking.
Me too.
They do a good job.
They're amazing.
And Jenny she did an excellent job here this summer. She picked up on the snow process. She made some good decisions. She's confident and decisive, and so that was helpful too. And so we had a good year. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that snow's over yet either, so we're still ready. In fact, we've been doing an inventory on what salt we have at the buildings too, so anyway.
Thank you so much. And thank you to
Thank
your
you.
people, and we'll definitely, I'm buying out my own money. I'm buying them breakfast coming up, so.
Nice. Well, thank you, Jerry, very much for sharing with us, and Eric for
Well,
putting the
make sure you-
pictures
I
together.
know.
And many thanks to the men and women who do make it safe for our kids to get out to go to school every day. I'll go ahead and read our statement regarding public comments during our public forum and our discussion items. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school, others will state their name and address. And our first discussion item is the board committee update. Is there anything anybody would like to highlight on their report?
I'd like to update the board on the Ames Education Foundation. 3 things I would like to point out. The first one is Ames Education Foundation has given ACT vouchers and transportation for students who take ACT. That was last June. They took students to Boone and Des Moines. And there's been conversations about the Ames does not have a site and what those barriers are. And I thought it would be appropriate for perhaps the Teaching and Learning Committee invite Annie Arbuckle to present, to just give us an insight on that end. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the foundation will be able to help students with that need assistance with their AP exam fees. So that's a biggie. And the third one is that innovation grant. The foundation gave $10,000 to the middle school, and there will be more coming.
Any other updates on committees? Seeing none, any comments from the public on our board committee update? Seeing none, we will move to the public forum, and there is no one signed up this evening, so we will move to consent items.
Move approval of consent.
Second.
Moved by Deardorff, seconded by Beerbaum.
Minutes from the meeting held March 6th and 11th. Financial reports for February. Claims and payroll for February. Personnel report. Contracts and agreements, including facilities use agreement with ISU for the use of Hilton Coliseum for commencement on May 26th. Amendment to Story County DCAT agreement to provide trauma-informed yoga at the high school, and is it Wayne? I think it's Wayne. Contract with private, or with Unite Private Networks, sorry. And then district gifts, Sawyer staff.
Great, it's been moved by Deerdorf, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. First action item is policies for action. Let's see. We don't have a motion on here, but you can create it, I think.
I move approval of the policies for action as stated in the agenda.
Second.
Was that Benkin? Sorry. Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Benkin. Discussion.
I would like to talk about the 202.5, the student school board representative. I'm on the fence on this one, so I kind of want to know what the board wants to get out of this position and how we are going to accomplish that.
I can comment. I think one of the things I'd like to get out of it is the times we have had direct student comments on different topics that are before us. I've found that gives me a little bit different perspective and clarity, and I would see this as being a great way to have that type of feedback. I think also having students have a voice and a conduit by which the things that we do here that affect them can be pushed back to the students, and then we hear more of their reaction. I think that would be helpful from my perspective. So that's one of the things I know we had talked about in the policy committee.
I'm struggling with the piece of having one student represented a whole body. I feel like that's a lot to shoulder for one student. And so I like the voice piece. I love it. I just don't know if that's the best we can do. I feel like it's just one voice. And we had a community member that asked, like, how are we gonna select this person? Like how, so I worry about who is this. I wonder about representation. And in the policy itself, I'm not super thrilled with it. It feels that they don't have a vote. So I feel it feels a little patronizing. They don't have a vote. There's a clause that we can dismiss them if they don't behave, and I feel that we don't have that. None of us can. So I think I don't agree with it.
They can't vote by law, so they can't vote.
They can't. Yeah. So that's the piece that I struggle with, that having somebody, and then I don't know. I just feel like maybe an advisory committee, like I saw the picture about you meeting with the high school students today about that climate, and that's a group of students, and I wonder if that will be, and then something will come out of there organically, because also we select them, right? So what if we have 5 amazing candidates? And who's going to select them from the board? So I struggle with the representation piece. I love the voice. I just don't know how.
Would it be helpful? I mean, this is common, so this is something that many districts have here right around us. So would it be helpful to maybe have a school board rep, a student rep, come and talk with the board, or a couple of them come and talk with the board about what they do and how it works?
I think it would be helpful. Do we have a plan of how? I mean, I guess I would like to know how exactly the student is our student is going to, one, get the feedback back to the students, or what is it that we're asking the student to do? What if we have 5 amazing candidates and then we have to just pick one? I don't know. There's just something about it that it doesn't.
So maybe some clarity just for me. Are you saying that, because I guess what I'm trying to understand is, are you saying the policy isn't clear, or that you just don't agree with the idea of it? Because that's what I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
No,
I feel like a lot of that stuff is addressed in the policy, and so if you don't see it that way, then I think that's helpful for the policy committee to know we need to better flesh it out. So like, for example, you're talking about I think one of the concerns you mentioned was the representative and how they were chosen, and, we spelled that out. So if we
Yep,
go to
and I know
that
that.
section,
Yep.
was there a specific problem that you, or something that you didn't like?
So which board member is it going to do?
I'm sorry?
Which board member is it?
So if I recall, it's several. It's two, right? It's like 2 or 3, and I think there was some discussion about that in the policy committee meeting. So I personally would step away from that if other people felt really, if it was really important for them to be involved in the decision-making process. That's how I would do it. So if that's something that you're saying you would like, is that what you're saying, that you would like to be involved in the decision-making process? Is that?
What I'm saying is that we have whoever does it, I trust all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it feels patronizing because we get to choose them. It's not, it's like we invite them to our world instead of making it happen from the students. The students choosing somebody and have that student represent them. It's us choosing somebody.
And I think it's done both ways. So sometimes it's an ASB represented position that the kids are voted on. I am not in favor of that. I have not seen that be a good representation, because it sometimes can end up as it's the most popular kid, not necessarily the kid that maybe is going to be able to pull groups together. And so that's, I think, but it can be done the other way as well. Sometimes that's a popularity contest rather than.
Yeah, I see that. I have a hard time putting the weight of the whole student representative on one shoulder.
I think the way I look at it, Jeanette, is to me, it's similar to what the city council, now I don't know a lot about how the city council has the ex officio member on city council, but I know that they have a representative from the Iowa State student body. I don't know how that person is elected, but they do have a singular person representing the student body. I guess I view it in a similar way to that setup.
It is elected through the student council.
Through the student body, yeah. So I think the other thing that, because this is a new concept for us, I'm willing to try it, because I'm very intrigued to see how this will go. And like with all policies, we can come back in 6 to 12 months. We always review them on a cycle, but if we need to come back and review, figuring out that, well, maybe in our community, we think that we need to make these appropriate changes. Maybe we find out that the student body really does want to elect the person, and so we come back and evaluate from that standpoint. But for me, I'm interested in trying this to see how this works for us, to provide that opportunity for student voice. I understand that, last time we had lots of conversations about the concerns of, how they can manage with the time and the different expectations, and I hear all of that and have those concerns. But I don't know if we're going to know all the answers until we try it out, so.
You brought up a good point. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. You brought up a good point about what if we have multiple candidates that are really good? And it does say that we could select 1 or 2. So we're not locked into one.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah.
Sure. And I share some of Jeanette's concerns, mostly about the burden side of things. And as Elisa pointed out, we have flexibility in how we implement this individual. So I think the policy committee did a good job of outlining how we'd go about selecting the person, the role and responsibilities. But I think us learning this process and figuring out how this could best help us would work. The other thing we could think about doing is inviting this person on an as-needed basis. So maybe they don't come to every meeting. Maybe if there's topics that we really want some insight, we make sure we invite them to that meeting. So I think we can be flexible in how we implement it.
Yeah, thank you. This is exactly what I need. I need that conversation piece and discussion. So, because I'm not part of the policy committee, so I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
So thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate you bringing the comments up, because it's important for us to have this discussion so that the community is aware of how we're thinking through this and how we're wanting to navigate this as we try a new idea in our community. So I appreciate the comments from all folks. So any other questions or discussion about the other policies? Seeing none, all been moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Benken. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 6-0. Item 12, setting the public hearing for the 2019-20 proposed budget. I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board order the board secretary to publish the proposed 2019-2020 budget and to set the date and time of the public hearing for April 8th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Benken, seconded by Deerdorf. Discussion. Go ahead.
I apologize, there were 2 attachments to the budget, and one of them didn't make it onto the website, so I laid copies of them. All the information on these are in the documents that you did get, so there's nothing that wasn't presented, but I did want to show you that this page that says notice of public hearing is what you're actually voting on tonight. You're voting to publish this in the paper and set our public hearing for April 8th, so I just wanted to point that out. I've included all of the financial pages for my budget, and I'd be happy to answer questions on any of them. I am going to go through and highlight just a few things for you. This page is our tax rate page. Compares last year's tax rates to this year's tax rates, and I just wanted to point out the most important thing is that we try to keep the tax rate at $14.34. Last year the tax rate was $14.34179. Next year's is proposed at $14.34126, so it's down slightly. Now we all know that once it goes through the state process, that will change slightly. Usually because of the instructional support levy that they still have in statute that we get state money and we don't. But that is the proposal. A couple of things to highlight on this is that we are dropping the cash reserve levy from $6.9 million down to $4.8. That is part of our 5-year forecast to get our solvency ratio up. We're trying to balance how much we levy in cash so that we don't end up in a situation where we levy it all in 1 year, the next year we can't levy anything. Am I not on? Sorry about that. And now?
Okay, here you go.
We don't want to get into a situation where we levy all the cash in 1 year and then next year can't levy any, and we have that vicious cycle where we go up and down. So I've worked with Tim Oswald on, we had targeted 4.7, I was able to do 4.8 after all was said and done. So that levy actually is going down $2 million from FY19, but the main reason we needed to do that is the debt service is going up $2.7 million. And so again, that's all part of our plan on keeping the tax rate the same with the new high school bonds. Any questions on our tax rate? Very quickly, one of the reasons that we are able to keep our tax rate stable as easily as we are is that we had another very good year in valuation. Our taxable valuation for all the funds except debt service and PEPAL went up 5.4%, and for debt service and PEPAL it went up 5.7%. That's a very good increase in our taxable valuation and allows us to manage our tax rate. Any questions on, and multi-residential, no surprise there, continues to be the biggest driver of our tax base as far as increases, not overall amount of the tax base, but what's going up the fastest. This is a page that I have done each year, and it's got a 5-year. I'm just going to show you. Show the difference between fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. This basically says what happens to an individual's house or business property taxes at different valuations. Given that everything's the same, in other words, I own a $100,000 house last year, I own a $100,000 house this year, the assessor did not increase the value of my house. Last year, on a $100,000 house, because of the residential rollback, individuals were taxed on 55.62% of their value, and their taxes were $728 for the school portion alone on that house. For next year, you will notice that the residential rollback is going up slightly. What that means is that before anything happens with the tax rate, is that individuals will pay taxes on a higher percentage of their home's value next year. So where we paid it on 55.62% this year, we'll pay it on 56.91 next year. This is not something we control. This is set by statute. Statute says that no class of property can grow by more than 4%, and even then, residential is tagged and cannot grow any faster than ag land. So in Iowa, that ag land drives a lot of our things. Commercial property, so the point of that is that for a $100,000 house, the taxes will go up $18.58 next year, even though our tax rate goes down slightly. And that's all a function of that residential rollback. Where you can really see that is on the commercial property, where the commercial is statutory limited to 90% of their assessed value, and their taxes actually go down 48 cents per million. So. As far as the general fund is concerned, this is our regular program summary. We went up 87.6 students. The state percentage of growth will give us additional $139 per student next year. That generates $1.2 million of new regular program dollars. We also had an increase in open enrollment, so we'll gain revenue there of about $200,000, which gives us about $1.4 million of new resources to allocate to new resources this year. Any questions? Just wave at me if you have questions. This page, which is page 12 of your handout, is my version of the Aid and Levy Worksheet. If you remember, I've given you the Aid and Levy Worksheet, and it will be in my big budget book when I present it. The Aid and Levy Worksheet's about 11 pages long. It's a lot of numbers that only people like me care about, so this is my condensed version to show you exactly where the dollars come from. And it starts with combining all of our district dollars, takes out the AEA flow-through, adds in preschool, adds in instructional support, so our total district dollars for the general fund that's generated by the formula is $44 million. You have to start then segregating out those funding sources that have to be used for those specific purposes, of which are designated by law. That takes out $13.6 million, which leaves $30.5 million of funding for the regular program. And again, then you'll see that ends up being our $1.2 million of new money. This page, which is page 14 of your handout, is the district's maximum budget. What this does is it tells us how much spending authority we have and how much cash we can levy. So I told you we were levying $4.8 million. The formula actually said we could have levied $8.7. And we could have done that, other than that what we needed to levy for debt service wouldn't have allowed that. That would have been a $3.11 tax rate just for the cash reserve. However, the reason we don't want to do that is because last year we ended up with a fund balance of $7.6 million. If we would add the $8.7 million of allowable cash reserve and take out how much spending authority we have, which is estimated to be $3.4 for last year, that would have meant that we would have had cash on hand of $12.9 million that we couldn't spend. We could have it for cash flow purposes, but we can't spend it. So that is why we're trying to balance that cash reserve levy and make sure we become solvent, and that we certainly don't have any issues with cash flow, and that we can continue to levy cash reserve each year and not get into that cycle of our fund balance going way down again. I'm going to skip a whole bunch of pages now. I'm going to go to page 34 of your handout. This is very tiny print, I know it is, so hopefully you can see it on your your handouts. What I wanted to point out on this is our bond schedules. You'll notice that we're pre-levying almost $3.8 million in fiscal year 20 to pay off the elementary bonds, the previous bonds. And then next year, 1.3, and then all those bonds will be defeased. They'll be in escrow, and they start being called this year. So between 19, 20, and 21, all those bonds will be called and paid off. I have also laid out then the plan for the bond issues through the high school. You've already approved, we levied, bonded last June for $4,995,000. You've already approved resolutions to bond for $45 million this June. We'll be having that sale May 6th and issuing those bonds in June. We plan at this point, now this is all subject to change because it will depend on how fast the construction goes. There's arbitrage rules on how fast the bonds have to be spent, but this is our plan at this point. We plan to do $50 million in June of 2020, and then just under $10 million in June of 21, but that certainly could shift between those 2 years if construction's not going as fast as we planned. But I did want to show you that we've got that laid out. We have not laid out scenarios for the sales tax because we're waiting to see if the legislation on the extension passes, because that makes a big difference to us in that we can levy over 20 years versus 9. So we didn't bother to go through the exercise of trying to figure out what those bond schedules are going to look like, since I've got cash to fund the pool for at least a year. So once we see what happens with that legislation, we'll start working on the revenue bonds. And one other page that I just like to highlight is the debt service pre-levy summary. This shows you what we've pre-levied each year up through 2021, our plan for 2021. But the number I really like is this number on the far right bottom corner, which is how much interest savings we have by prepaying these bonds, which is just under $6.2 million. That is a direct savings to the property taxpayers of this district by levying those bonds and prepaying them. I went through that very quickly, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. Now, we do have, the one thing I probably should have started off is the certified budget is the certified budget. It doesn't change. The resources will not change in this budget. The formula sets how much money we get. How we allocate resources within that budget is of discussion. We have set a public or a work session for April 8th to talk about what used to be called the superintendent's budget, and I don't know that we've come up with a name for it this year. I think it's still superintendent's budget in board policy. So we'll go over how of that $1.4 million we're going to allocate resources, both additions and deletions. So, but the budget itself does not change. There will be, you can't make a decision later on and say, I want more money. That's not an option. I wish it was, but it's not.
In a very broad way, I just want to thank the public. Our community always supports public education in Ames to the tune of $40 million a year, and it's substantial. With the bond referendum passing overwhelmingly, again, it shows the support of public education. So first, thank you to the community for continuing to support us. I think providing stability in that tax rate, and Chris does a great job managing that, is very important. I think people like to have that. They don't like fluctuations in their taxes. They want more stability. So I think we've told them we'd keep that stability in place, and we've shown that we can do that. And so I fully support this, and I think we're doing a good job in being prudent in how we're managing our resources. So thank you, Chris, for your work.
And Chris, I'd like to thank you and your staff for getting the budget together in a little more timely fashion and working hard at that. Also, definitely the community for working forwards. And I was going to ask the big question, but you answered it right at the end there, what we saved by pre-levying those dollars and paying them back early. That's huge savings for our property taxpayers, and we can go forward from there. You mentioned the SAVE and the penny sales tax, that you didn't bother working the numbers. It's interesting that they're talking about extending it a couple more years or an additional year, that's good, but that still is looking very good. Last 2 weeks ago now, when we were down there, it's really on track. So let's hope, we're crossing our fingers that by the end of the month that we should have an answer for that.
And the longer they extend it, the better, but we are limited to 20-year bonds, so.
Right.
So that piece won't change.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Chris? Thank you, Chris, for all your work, all your information. So it was moved by Bankin, seconded by Deerdorf to set the public hearing, and this is a motion on roll call.
Perez, aye.
Bankin, aye.
Deerdorf, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Colton, I.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Item 13, transportation contract for school years 2020 to 2022.
I move the board approve the 3-year contract with Durham School Services as presented.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Deerdorf. Discussion.
I would like to, we always talk about the company, but I would like to thank the drivers and thank Durham for hiring drivers that I know they are working hard to get our littles where they should be. And I 2 years ago, we were having a tricky time, and this year was a complete different experience for a lot of families. And I tend to think that it was a lot on the drivers, that they really are working so hard. So thank you.
All right, moved by Bankin, seconded by Deerdorf. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Passes 6-1. Item 14, building enclosure commissioning services for the new high school construction.
I move the board award building envelope commissioning services for the new Ames High School construction project to Wiss Janey Elstner Associates Incorporated in the amount of $171,000.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Beerbaum. Discussion?
I'm sorry if I butchered those names.
We'll forgive you. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board. I appreciate Director Colton saying something about the Durham staff, but I know some of them are here, and I want to say thank you. There have been some trying times in the past, and we know it, but you've really pushed through and I believe are providing an increased service, a better service for us. So thank you, and appreciate also all of the drivers and what they're, and the aides that are on the buses with them.
Yes.
and all they do to get our kids to school safely every day. So thank you very much.
I did want to provide public notice. I received information from the Ames Breakfast Lions Club. They currently provide vision screening for our students in all of our buildings, and they're going to be having a public fair that's really targeted towards adults this Saturday, the 30th at North Grand Mall between 1 and 3 p.m. So it's a free vision test. What they do, they partner with the Iowa City Hospital to go through a number of tests. It's fairly simple from what I understand, but if you have any interest, it's a free service that they're providing.
One last thing that I want to mention, Jenny and I got to go to the Ames Day at the Capitol. It seems like a long time ago, but that was just right before spring break. And I just want to thank the Chamber and Drew Camp for organizing it and providing us the opportunity to meet with several of the leaders down at the Capitol and to be able to advocate for education, which Jenny did a great job in advocating for our kids, our staff, and the things that we know that we need here as a locally elected board to be able to provide the kind of education that we know that we are capable of. So I appreciate her efforts and all the efforts of those that went into it, organizing it, and allowing Ames to have a voice at the Capitol. So Items from the superintendent.
I'll be brief because I do know that many of you are wanting to get to a game. So, but I did want to thank Carl for, I don't know, did he just step out? What? Yeah, I know. I thought, but he already, okay, he was sick. So I did want to thank him. Over break, he got cameras in all of our elementary buildings and just did a tremendous amount of work on that. And so that's not an easy task, but one that we really appreciate. And so thank you to Carl, and we'll pass it on. But I know he's not feeling well. And that's all. I'll stop with that.
All right, how about the board planning calendar? We just scheduled one today.
We have it's the first, Monday the 1st at 1:30. And that will be a public hearing.
It's to set the public hearing.
To set a public
The public hearing. Got
like we
it.
did tonight.
I have everything.
That's not on my agenda because it was
Sorry, we
last
just-
minute, so. I'm looking over there at Kim like, give me what, remind me what.
It's to set the public hearing for the bid issuance for the first
issuance
set
number
of
one.
bids for the high school, which is really exciting. So that's what I wanted to mention. So it's just to set the public meeting.
And Jerry, that's the groundwork, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Rosser. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you.